Welcome to Bike Shows UK. I'm Steve Berry, and this week we're at the largest event of its kind you'll find anywhere in the world. I am talking, of course, about the International Classic Bike Show here at Stafford. So hold on to your pudding base and helmets, don't go anywhere. We've got all the action coming up quicker than a well-ridden Manx Norton. This is the 23rd International Classic Bike Show, and it's a chance to catch up on all that's new in the world of old bikes. This show is a mixture of bikes from the golden era of British biking with those from the formative years of Japanese dominance.
The show's a mix of club stands, traders, dealers, publishers, everything that's built around the classic motorcycle industry.
The machines on display this weekend are some of the most exotic, glamorous and awe-inspiring machinery that ever graced the Grand Prix stage. But everyone is in agreement at what are the highlights of this fabulous show.
The highlights of the show this year are the exotic machinery. George Beale with his just finished Honda 6 race replica, the Moto Guzzi V8, which was a marvel in its time in the 50s. And the Mike Aylward 1978 TT winning Ducati.
I think the highlights of this year's show have to be the Aylward Ducati. I remember that racing in 1978 in the Isle of Man. It was entered by a Manchester firm called Sports Motorcycles, and Aylward did the incredible thing of coming back after 11 years in the wilderness to the TT and won outright. It did so much for Ducati, it did so much for British fans that absolutely loved and adored Mike Aylward, and that bike is here today.
This replica 1967 Honda is the centrepiece of the International Classic Association's racing display, and this one comes from the creator's workshop himself, George Beale.
It's taken us 4 years to actually make this bike. It's a very special one, it's the most desirable motorcycle in the world. Everybody knows it, and it's the one that Mike Aylward made himself famous riding. It's a 297cc, 6-cylinder, 4-stroke Honda. With it revs to almost 20,000 revs, and it used to win everything, you know.
A big part of the Stafford show is the Bonhams Classic Auction. Now we're here on the Saturday, which is the viewing day, where you can come along, look at the catalogue, kick a few tyres and contemplate a bargain. Or not, as the case may be. A special highlight for race fans will be the chance to acquire an historic Aomaki race bike ridden by former world champion Kel Carruthers. Bidding is bound to be fierce, with the auction attracting bidders from the UK and from far and wide, including foreign bidders. Auctions are strange things. They're open selling areas. You can grab a bargain, but everyone keeps very much to themselves. And there's all sorts of motorcycle ephemera you can bid for. Posters, photos, engine parts, and of course, bikes themselves.
In a moment, sir. 1,050's there. 1,050 on my right. 1,100 and 50. 1,150 on my right, sorry. 1,150. 1,200 and 50.
Bidding on this Norton Commander became frantic as an unknown phone bidder came to the floor.
1,900. How about it? 2,000. 2,000's bid. Thank you for saving time. 2,000.
Rumours quickly spread that it was the RAC chairman on the phone.
50 if you want. No, he's definitely out, sir. Well done at £2,000. Was there another? At 2,000. Your bid, sir. Well done. Your number.
but it was one of the bidders on the floor that won the day. Now, one of the most interesting characters on the classic bike scene has to be Sammy Miller, he of the Sammy Miller Museum. He was also, of course, a top trials rider and road racer, and he's here today with some of his collection, including this amazing Moto Guzzi. Sam, tell us about this bike.
Well, Steve, this is the Mona Lisa. This is the ultimate. Every boy's dream, the V8, and in '57, Moto Guzzi came out with this bike, and it was going to be a world beater. And it was timed at the Belgium Grand Prix at Francorchamps. You've probably been there. I raced at this actual meeting at 178 miles an hour.
Tell the story about how it came about, Sam, because didn't they
the-
notice that the rules didn't say
How many cylinders?
how many cylinders?
Or how many
they thought,
carburetors?
well, all it says is 500 cc's.
Yeah.
So let's make a 500cc V8
Yeah.
with 8 carburetors.
And 8 carburetors, 8 sets of points, 8 condensers, leading link forks, technology of the ultimate in
The
57.
truth is, there's probably never been and never again will be a bike that made the impact that this one did.
No,
People
they-
just
they-
thought it was a rocket ship from outer space, didn't
And
they?
it was, because it was timed at 178 miles an hour in Belgium. And that's 500cc. You've got Valentino Rossi, 44 years later, he's doing 200 mile an hour, and he's doing twice the capacity. He's running 1000cc, so he's gained sort of 22 mile an hour in 44 years, and he's got twice the capacity.
Sammy, why do you think there's so much interest in these bikes, and not just in looking at them somewhere like this, actually seeing them being used and being demonstrated or raced or whatever?
I think it's the difference, Steve. You go to a Grand Prix today, like I go to them, and if you took all the numbers off all the bikes, you couldn't tell the difference, because they're all literally this. No, it's different this year with a new 4-stroke, but previous to that, they were all very similar. You're all the same configuration. Probably the computers put out the same figures to make a successful product. And in the early days, you had single Nortons, you had twin BMWs, you had 4-cylinder Gilleras, you had 8-cylinder Moto Guzzis, you had leading link forks, you had, telescopic forks, you had, all sorts of combinations, and every bike sounded different. When we were boys watching racing, part of the game was who's coming down the 7 mile straight. Is it Artie Bell on his Norton or Les Graham on the Porcupine?
And from the noise,
From the noise before they even come into sight, and today they all sound the same,
Now, the other thing that people talk about when they talk about this bike, Sam, is its value.
Yes.
So, if it came on the
you
open
give me
market...
the check and I'll fill the figures in.
Well, listen,
No,
somebody's
you
told
give me
me...
the check and I'll fill the figures in.
Somebody's told me today that if it came on the open market, it probably wouldn't be sold unless somebody was offering at least £350,000.
Well,
How much is it insured for?
If I could
How
buy
much is it
If I
insured
could
for?
buy it for that, I'd have it tomorrow, boy.
Really? So it's
I
probably
think you're
worth
well
more.
out of bed there. Well out of bed.
The Classic Bike Show is a great excuse to show off your pride and joy. And some of these bikes have been entered into the Best in Show competition. In fact, this year's show has seen a record number of private entries. I met Chief Judge Frank Farrington to find out a bit more about what he's looking for in a concourse bike. So we've got all manner of motorcycles here. There's Royal Enfield, Greaves, Scrambler there.
Yes, we've got a Vincent over there. We've got just about every kind of bike you can think of.
All sorts. Now, it's your onerous task to actually judge these machines. What are you looking for when you look at these bikes?
Mainly originality. Mainly, yes. Originality, presentation, good finish, but not too good.
But the finish is absolutely superb. I mean, something like, there's a little Honda just over there, and it's gleaming. It's absolutely gleaming.
Absolutely gleaming.
But it would have been quite an ordinary bike at the time, and would no way it would have been finished to that standard. Is it a problem when people just want to do too much to these bikes?
Yes, it is. Over-restoration is a problem these days. We try to eliminate over-restored bikes. Now, this particular Greaves in front of us isn't actually over-restored. It might have been turned out by the factory like that, but of course the finish wouldn't have lasted very long.
Yeah.
A week or two. Yeah.
How can you tell if a bike's been ridden?
Telltale marks, carbon up the exhaust pipe, and maybe a current tax disc if it's a road bike. If we're looking for trying to choose between 3 perfect bikes, if one of them's got current tax disc, that's the one we go for.
So, Frank, can you be bribed?
Yeah, a pint of miles.
Right. Bar's over there.
Yeah.
Come on. Each year the Classic Bike Show has a guest of honour. Last year it was sidecar racer extraordinaire Chris Vincent, and this year it's the Blackpool Rocket himself, Derek Woodman. Derek, how does it feel to be back here in Stafford at the Classic Bike Show?
Fantastic. That's the only, when they first asked me about last August, I had reservations because the fact that you're a motorbike racer doesn't mean to say that you're a good public speaker or whatever. But I've come down here today and it's just been unbelievable. People from 30 years ago, which is when I stopped racing, it was as though it was yesterday.
Just give us a brief resume of your career, because it took a different direction to most British riders.
A local garage chap started to sponsor me, and I was noticed at the TT in the Isle of Man and invited to go over to join what they call then the Continental Circus. And I was noticed because I beat the Russian, a chap called Sevestianov, on a Vostok 4 at the East German Grand Prix. And the East Germans, I thought they'd gone mad. There were 300,000 at the meeting, and they were so pleased that somebody had beaten this Russian to, I was second or third. So the next year, or later that year, they invited me to test drive their MZ machine at Monza in Italy. And MZ were so impressed that I got a contract to race for the next 4 years with them.
Over here we think of MZ as manufacturers of very mundane machinery, but the GP bikes, they were different, weren't they?
Well, MZ were ahead of the time. It was in the middle of the Cold War, of course, 63, 64. They had very few resources, poor metal access, but provided they didn't seize up, which they did very regularly, they were very quick machines. Unfortunately, somebody stole the plans and took them to Japan, and hence the Yamaha Suzuki came to be and overtook MZ, or else MZ would have been world champions in probably 64, maybe 65.
So, has being back at the Classic Bike Show reinvigorated your interest in bikes, and particularly classic bikes?
No, it's reinvigorated my love of the biking fraternity. They're great people, like-minded people, but I'd rather remember as it was when I left it. I'm still 32 years old in my mind, and I know for a fact if I jump back on a bike now, I shall feel my age, which I'm not prepared to reveal.
Well, that's it for part one, but whatever you do, don't go anywhere, because part two is coming right up. Welcome back to part two of Bike Shows UK. I'm Steve Berry, and we're still here at the 23rd International Classic Bike Show at Stafford. Quite simply, the biggest and best event of its kind anywhere in the world. The Classic Bike Show wouldn't be where it is today without the bike clubs and their contribution. Walking round, you can find an association for every kind of motorcycle. I stumbled across the MV Agusta Owners Club. Well, you can hardly miss them with all that red, can you? So Alan, what do you lot get out of coming along to Stafford?
Basically, we're here to promote the name of MV Agusta.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons the club was originally set up, because once the actual factory had said that they're going to stop producing motorcycles or road-going motorcycles in the 70s, we thought it necessary to promote the use and the actual keeping the bikes of running and restoring them, so that the name is basically promoted.
It's strange, isn't it? Because in Britain we think of MV as producers of high-end exotica, but they made some fairly modest motorcycles and scooters, didn't they, as well?
Oh yeah, I mean, the MV Agusta started life after the Second World War producing motorcycles because there was a dire need in Italy for just basic utility transport. They started off making two-strokes and then slowly developed onto the four-strokes, and from there they developed their racing life, and carried on into the 500 Grand Prix multi-cylinder race bikes that we know of.
But now there's a great sort of classic scene in Europe now, isn't there?
Oh yeah.
So do you guys, presumably, you go to Stafford, but you spend a lot of time going over to Italy to
Oh, we go
stuff
to
over?
Italy, yeah, we go over to Italy quite often. And there's been a big resurgence of interest in these small 175s since they've reintroduced the Moto Giro in Italy. And that's a road race, or it's not a race, it's now a rally round Italy for bikes made in the 50s up to 175. So people have started getting these things out of the closet
when
and
is
rebuilding. First week in June.
Right, I'm off. Now, you're probably wondering how I got so wet. Well, we were going to cheat and do this bit after I'd ridden the bike and pretend that it was before, but we can't do that because it's obviously after. You see, my problem was I saw the sun in the sky and I thought, what could be nicer on a day like today than to ride a lovely matchless single through the Staffordshire countryside? And then the heavens opened. Lovely. Right, well, somehow I've managed to persuade the members of the AJS and Matchless Owners Club to take one of the bikes off the stand, bring it out here, put some petrol in the tank and let me go for a bit of a jaunt. It's a 350 Matchless single dating from the mid-1960s. This bike's probably most famous as the old World War II bike that the British Army were equipped with. This was really the last incarnation of that machine and just the thing for a jaunt along the B-roads of Staffordshire on a lovely sunny day, like today. At every bike show, you'll find an auto jumble, the place where people rummage for either complete machines or that all-important small part. Now, you won't find a better classic bike jumble than the one at Stafford. Who knows, in 12 months, this bike could be in the concourse event. If it's raining, as it is right now, then the Indoor Auto Jumble is the place to be. And it's not just a place to buy bikes or bits for your bike. You can buy books for bikes. You can get a waterproof cover for your bike. Or, on a whim, you can buy a dirty great lathe. Have you got a bag for this? Now, we usually think of classic bikes as appealing to the more mature motorcyclist. But I have a young chap here, Robert Vincent, aptly named, and he's the, what is it, the Classic Biker of the Year or something?
The Classic Motorcyclist, Young Motorcyclist of the Year.
That's a long title. Now, you're only 20, how come you're into classic bikes? How did you get into it?
Well, my father was a motorcyclist during the 60s, and when the family came along, he went on to cars, a natural progression during that time. But during the early 90s, he got a classic motorcycle in bits, and I was quite young at that time, about 8, and over a few years, he built it up.
And that's how you got interested in it?
Yeah.
What about Fireblades and GSXRs and stuff like that? Is that not...
I've got a modern Triumph Daytona.
Right.
It's my second means of transport,
Yeah.
but it does come second sometimes to my classic motorcycle.
Now, before we go any further, I think I need to find out and establish whether the fact that you're called Robert Vincent and the fact that we're surrounded by Vincent motorcycles, there's a connection, or is it just a complete coincidence?
Just a name, that's all.
Right. It's not a bad one to have, though, is it?
Yeah.
So you're building a race bike, aren't you?
Yeah, it's what they call a Egley Comet. It's using a Swiss Fritz Egley frame with the standard Vincent Comet engine fitted into it. It's a lot lighter, a lot lower, and uses a lot more modern components.
As the 23rd International Classic Bike Show draws to a close, let's see if some of the visitors have grabbed a bargain and what some of the highlights have been.
Well, I think it's really good.
Yeah, excellent.
There's tons of people, there's tons of exhibits, there's loads of things to look at, there's clothes, there's bikes. Everybody's mixing real well. I think it's really good.
Endless boxes of scrap, which is what I'm interested in.
It's very good. Impressed with it. I have a modern bike myself, but yeah, I'm impressed with this. Very good.
It's good. Plenty of people here. Plenty to look at.
What's been your favourite bit?
Coming to see this bike behind me, Mike Elwood's. It's from when I was a kid, like, you know. Yeah, it's good stuff.
I didn't think it was so big as it was. This is our first time at this one. But yeah, it's really good. Really amazed how big it is and what, you know, all the parts you can still get and everything.
Well, it's very busy here. There's a lot to see. We're finding it quite difficult to get around actually because there's so much there.
It's good. There's plenty of bits here, plenty of things to see, plenty of old bikes, which is nice.
It's nostalgia. Has to be nostalgia. It's a major part. So people look at the rose-tinted glasses on years gone by and they forget how hard times were, and they look at the sort of things like this, and it's a very nostalgic thing.
Brilliant. I've been here twice now, and it gets better every time.
Well, that's all from this edition of Bike Shows UK, here from the Classic Bike Show at Stafford. Now, with the hundreds, possibly thousands of bikes that are here, I think this one is my favourite. A 1929 Indian Scout 101 finished in fire engine red. Just look at it, it's absolutely gorgeous. See you soon.